Hey there, quick question for you. Remember last year when your favorite chocolate bar was just $1? Well, have you checked the price lately? It might be $2 or even $3 now. What's going on? Did the corner store suddenly get super greedy? Or could there be a sneaky little monster on the loose, and its name is inflation? Now, before you go looking under your bed, let's be clear. Inflation isn't some magical or evil force. Think of it more like a mischievous money monster. It doesn't actually steal your cash. It just makes your cash worth a little less over time. So that $10 bill you had in your pocket last year, today it buys you slightly less stuff. That, my friends, is inflation in a nutshell. Let's break it down with a couple of scenarios. Imagine there's only one super cool must-have robot toy in the entire town, but 100 kids, including you, desperately want it. The store owner sees this massive crowd and thinks, instead of selling it for the original $10, I bet I can sell it for $30. And just like that, the price skyrockets. That's a classic case of what economists call demand pull inflation. When there are way too many buyers chasing after not enough stuff, prices inevitably go up. Okay, scenario number 2. Let's meet Baker Bob. Bob makes the most delicious bread in town. Last month, a bag of flour cost him $1, but this month, his supplier tells him the price has jumped to $3. Bob still needs to make a living, right? So, to cover his higher costs, he has to raise the price of his bread from $2 to $4. This is called cost-push inflation, when the ingredients and materials needed to make products get more expensive. Sellers have to pass those costs onto us, the customers, just to stay in business. Here's where it gets really tricky and can turn into a vicious cycle. When prices for things like bread and gas go up, workers start to feel the pinch. They go to their bosses and say, "Hey, I need a raise just to afford my groceries." Fair enough, right? The bosses often agree, but now their payroll costs are higher. So what do? They raise the prices of their products and services again to cover the new wages. This, in turn, makes workers need even more pay, and we get stuck in this loop. This frustrating circle is called the wage price spiral, and it can be incredibly difficult to break. Now, let's talk about another major cause. Imagine the government decides to throw a massive money party. They start printing tons and tons of new cash and give it out to everyone. Woohoo! Free money. Suddenly, everyone has an extra $100 in their pocket. But here's the catch. The number of things to buy hasn't changed. There are still only 10 loaves of that delicious bread from Baker Bob. Sellers see everyone waving around their new cash and think, I can charge $10 a loaf now instead of $4. See the problem? More money in the system doesn't automatically mean more stuff. It often just means higher prices for the same amount of stuff. This is what's known as too much money chasing too few goods. So, with all these rising prices, how do the grown-ups, the economists, actually track how bad inflation is? They use a special tool called the CPI, which stands for the Consumer Price Index. Think of the CPI as a detective that keeps a giant shopping list of everyday things: milk, eggs, gasoline, movie tickets, even a new pair of shoes. It tracks the prices of this basket of goods over time. If the news reports that the CPI went up by 3%, it means that, on average, the prices for all those items in the basket have increased by 3% over the last year. But here's the key word: average. Your favorite snacks might have gone up 10%, while a new TV might have actually gotten cheaper. The CPI gives us a good general idea, but it doesn't always reflect your personal experience perfectly. So, Is inflation always this big, bad monster we need to fear? Actually, no. Think of the economy like a bowl of porridge. If it's too cold, that's called deflation. Where prices are falling, it can be really bad because people stop spending, waiting for prices to drop even more. But if it's just right, a little bit of inflation is actually considered healthy for the economy. A small, steady increase, usually around 2% per year, is the Goldilocks zone. It gently encourages people to spend and invest their money rather than hoarding it, which keeps businesses growing and creating jobs. Central banks around the world actively aim for this sweet spot. But what happens when inflation gets out of control? That's when you get hyperinflation. This is when prices don't just creep up, they explode, sometimes doubling every single day. There have been historical examples, like in Venezuela recently, where money became so worthless that people were literally throwing stacks of bills in the trash. Imagine a loaf of bread costing $1 on Monday, and by Friday, it costs $1,000. It completely destroys savings and throws society into chaos. This is why it's so crucial to keep inflation from spiraling out of control. So, who are the heroes that fight this inflation monster? That job falls to the central bank superheroes, like the Federal Reserve in the United States. They have two main superpowers to cool down an overheating economy. First, they can raise interest rates. This makes it more expensive for people and businesses to borrow money for things like cars, houses, or new equipment. When borrowing is expensive, people spend less. Demand cools off, and prices start to calm down. Their second tool is to slow down the money printer. By creating less new money, they reduce the amount of cash floating around in the economy, which helps prevent prices from jumping up so quickly. It's like carefully turning down the heat on a pot that's about to boil over. So, knowing all this, what can you do? The one thing you definitely shouldn't do is just stuff all your cash in a piggy bank or under your mattress. Because of inflation, that money will slowly lose its value year after year. Instead, the smart move is to make your money work for you through investing. You could buy stocks, which means owning a tiny piece of a company like Apple or your favorite video game maker. As the company grows, so can the value of your stock. You could also look into things like gold, which has historically held its value well during uncertain times, or even real estate, because the value of houses and land tends to go up over the long run. Even a small investment can grow over time and help you beat inflation. Remember this, $100 saved in a jar in 2010 buys you a lot less today than $100 that was invested back in 2010. So, now you're an expert. Inflation is that sneaky money monster that makes our cash worth a little less over time. It happens for all sorts of reasons, from too much demand to higher costs to too much money being printed. But now you know that with smart strategies and our central bank superheroes, we can manage it and even beat it. If you found this video helpful and learned something new, do me a huge favor and smash that like button and subscribe for more content just like this.